Hola, hola. I am Trek with 2Ks.
And I am 3D, and welcome to Metaverses The Other Side.
Brought to you here on the Gentlemen of Crypto Network. Just a heads up, this episode is before we had the idea of bringing the Twitter spaces to the Gentlemen of Crypto Network. And so that's why we're talking about the stuff that we're talking about in this episode.
Hola, hola. What is going on? Give me a second as I get these things in order. All right, so let me just throw this out there for the folks who will either jump in here this later or who get this over on Metaverses The Other Side on the Gentleman of Crypto YouTube channel. So if you don't know, this is Metaverses The Other Side. I am Trek with 2Ks. My co-host here is 3D, and we basically geek out about things within the metaverse space. We don't really do price talk stuff, but we do have a whole thing about how you can extrapolate value in metaversal spaces. You can DM us about that. We've done like the lectures and all that fun stuff. We also put together a website for folks who are more interested on figuring out how to actually do stuff. We have a website called Metaversal Toolbox, which basically has no code, low code, and some code ready options that are free and open source, or at least X amount of them used to be fully free. And I got to say that with caveats, because things have been changing over the last couple of months since we initially put that together and put it up on IPFS. Also, if you are a person who is a practitioner of distributed decentralized storage, if you got IPFS, definitely check out the website. Do add us to your node. If you're doing something on Filecoin or one of the other decentralized storage setups, please do add us into your setup, because the idea is to be able to keep this information out there and accessible to any and everybody, right? If we really talk about how this thing is supposed to be permissionless and open source to everybody, then it only makes sense that we try to keep the information alive out there and accessible to people across the globe via the internet. The other thing is, this is the Builder DAO account here on Twitter. And for folks who don't know, that's an idea that me and 3D had, where we came up with the first NFT faucet NFT. So it's literally, we use the whole, how do I say, that's too long for housekeeping right now. We can explain that another time if somebody has a question about it. But nonetheless, we do have in the Builder DAO the first NFT faucet that was made in a metaversal space. We built it in the Uplift metaverse, which is voxel based, which is Minecraft related, if you know anything about those particular things. If not, we're always down to answer questions and help people understand how they can make their own stuff. What else? Oh, again, Metaverses The Other Side does a replay over on the Gentleman of Crypto YouTube channel, which comes out on Thursdays at 11 p.m. And basically, you're hearing the audio, and then we're doing some different visual stuff as it is YouTube. So the visuals is kind of different. Sometimes it's us building things like in Uplift or showing some kind of metaversal gameplay, virtual reality gameplay, or it just might be the visual screen so you can see who's actually talking in these Twitter spaces that we host. But other than that, it was just let y'all know what was up and what this whole thing is about. We do honestly know we're not everybody's cup of tea, but we do still keep it up, and we've been doing this, bro. Like, you realize, I want to say we're over 8 months now, because that was last June, and we're still here, and we're still tapping on different things going on, within this metaversal virtual reality thing, and it is definitely things are still developing. So yeah. Ooh, excuse me. Sorry, I had to for the throat there. Just want to say, who is it? Your overseer. Thanks for jumping in. We appreciate you for coming over. Sorry, I was trying to clear my throat offline, but anywho, so I had reached out to 3D earlier, and I was like, hey, what do you kind of want to tap on? And I was then going through Twitter and looking at some of the news stuff. It's, what's funny, and I'm gonna throw this out to you, 3D, about how the news for metaverse stuff kind of works right now. And not necessarily right now, like this is just a new thing, but what I've noted, if you look at it, it's mostly press release stuff. It's not too much. Let me not say not too much, because it also depends on kind of who you're following on Twitter and who is paying attention to either price talk or who's paying attention to actual technical developments or business partnerships. Make sense?
Yeah, I think after we saw what happened with FTX, Almedia, and a couple of other those obvious scams that just kind of fell through, whatever. That one that took 2 years or whatever to happen, or 4 years or whatever. So I think what happened is people are these news companies. Not the actual people writing or anything, but the people actually running them. They're like, hey, we need to be a little more cautious about what we're putting out. Because remember, most of what we're reading nowadays isn't actually news. It's just repurposed information. They always come from another source, whatever. And some of the FTX stuff, sources, for their news and reports and stuff, were actually doctored or faked or falsified or whatever. So even those types of way of producing the news has, within the last 2 or 3 months, has completely changed. where we're actually seeing, you know, less and less of that happening. I'm sure eventually it'll come back into the tide, but at the moment they're in this shaky part where they're like, we don't want to report on anything because we're not a full-on news company, but we don't want to report on anything unless we have something actually backing it. And I do like the ideal of it, but that just means that we have hype cycle news. That's what that means. So like every time something comes out, the first press release, right, causes hype on it, and then people go, okay, well, this isn't just hype. This is a news release or press release. This is something coming from them, and blah blah blah. A lot of times it ends up being just marketing data sheet, basically, right? And they just, you know, give it out. And then because of that, developers that are working on that kind of stuff, they all then start putting in stuff for that because they see it's there, and they're like, oh, this is our time to get known. And so we're starting to see where developers either they're just getting smarter at releasing information, or they have a team of marketers just waiting to do that for them, because we are seeing, like, as soon as someone leaks something, like something's about to go live, or something that is pretty much in test, where like, hey, look, we're testing, we have people working on it, we want to make sure people know that it exists, blah blah. Those are only things we're seeing right now. And once one of those pops out, and a bunch of other, right now we don't have anything really coming out from Metaverses. Like, one of the things you sent over was about the NFT thing. And before we get into that, I just want to point out that this thing that we're seeing here, where this major company's NFT marketplace broke, or is crashing basically, we're going to see a lot of this with Metaverses, and we kind of already have. But I think that these newer monetization models that are literally just been focusing on the last few months, that we've been kind of talking about, that we're really seeing more prevalent, I think that, like, because of that, we're just going to see more of Metaverses taking the same thing, where someone predominant or even non-predominant, they're going to produce something, rather it be an actual metaverse or a property for it or a service for it or something involved with it. And a lot of times NFTs are in that case, which is why we're going to be looking at this one here in a minute. But we're going to start seeing more stuff pop up that just as quickly it dies. Either it just was a bad model, the monetization model for it didn't work out, or it just couldn't keep popularity amongst other ones because it was easily reproducible. So you're going to have all these little pop-ups of genius things that just don't work out. And that brings us right into what we're talking about today, mostly on the Coinbase NFT market. We kind of saw this coming. Like, I know when they first started trying to launch, I knew a few people who were actually involved in the beta and people who were trying to get into the beta. So I got to see people who were in the beta being like, oh my gosh, and people trying to get into the beta were constantly being scammed. New version, new email, new this, new that. So we're also in this point where we have these scammers producing bits of information so fast that the second a news article is put out, before it really comes out, before people really know about it, just the second it hits the internet, it's published. You know, scammers are already hitting on that. And it's making it more difficult to actually develop stuff right now, where, you know, a year ago when we first started talking, developers were really teaming together and people were throwing money at them to just make something happen fast, and it hurt. Now we're literally within the same year, we're seeing developers like starting to break apart, big teams starting to break apart into smaller teams, but they're starting to get more work done. So what is your thought on that? Is it you on the same stride that I'm thinking with the hype marketing news cycle? And then also I want you to bring us in directly on the NFT marketplace, because you use Coinbase, don't you? Or you used to, or something like that?
Man, so I haven't touched Coinbase since like 2018. So yeah, it's been a very, 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 very long time. Because yeah, by the time like I got out of Coinbase, like, yeah, so what, 2018, maybe a little bit into 2019, but like I haven't touched it since then. So for however shit is working on Coinbase now, like I have no idea, bro. I don't even know what the website look like right now. And whatever like features and functions that they have, no idea.
Okay, so I didn't know that you stopped using it. I'm glad. I knew you didn't like to use that kind of stuff, so I'm glad you're not. I know when the beta first launched, I had a look at their site. Their site hasn't changed so much, so you're not missing much. But think about that. Could you easily be tricked into jumping onto a fake marketplace for Coinbase because you don't know what their site looks like or anything?
Arguably, yeah, because I don't even have it like browser saved, like just on the end of I don't use it. I'm like how many phones later, so I have not again, like I haven't carried over the app even, just because I stopped using it like altogether. So arguably, yes, like you know, getting faked on going to a site. Granted, somebody might argue, well, if you're going into like the Google Play Store, you know, of course it's going to be the real one there. It's like, it's not necessarily a guarantee, you know. But like as far as the Coinbase thing, so two parts to this. One, I don't use Coinbase anymore. I did used to use it, but that was like way back when, before all of the shit that we have now on, you know, exchanges and wallets and blah blah blah. And then the other thing, as far as what you were saying about the news cycle stuff, like definitely, because I had to like play around with just like what I even put in for Twitter. It was like, what was it, like metaverse, virtual reality, metaverse news, metaverses news, just to kind of like see, all right, what would it give me in the feed, and a majority of the stuff that it showed were some kind of press release / airdrop. Here and there, it was individuals who were actually like highlighting something that they're either working on, or they did a reshare on something someone else did, right? And so it is quote news, but then again, but then the other part of it is it's like, all right, it's not news that I would be interested in. Like, I don't care about the airdrops. I don't care about the, you raised $20 million. I don't care about any of that. My thing is like, well, how's your tech working? What does it do? Are you meeting what you were talking about in your roadmap? Like, have you made those technical accomplishments, right? That's the stuff that gets me. And even in that, like, there's not too much stuff that can be said right now because, like, who's really doing what that's like really, really innovative? Granted, there is one story on here that I think is kind of interesting, and it is very similar conceptually to what me and you have been talking about with the mind test stuff. So, but jumping into the situation with Coinbase and the NFT market, like, one of the things I've noted over, I think, the last 2 weeks is that in the overall space, a lot of the news you see in relation to business partnerships and the regulatory part is companies within the space and non-crypto related companies preparing for what some people are labeling as the next boom cycle. And I'm not saying this in regards to, I'm not trying to do this in the vein of like financial talk. It's going to sound like it, but that's not what I'm trying to make the main point of this. Again, we're not CPAs, we're not lawyers, we're not financial advisors. We're literally just two dudes on the internet who geek out about things related to the metaversal spaces, and we share some of the observations we have in this blockchain, crypto, metaversal, virtual reality space, right? The cypherpunk realm is, as we look at it too. And so again, what we see going on with these companies is that they're making these partnerships, and at the same time, some companies are doing total pivots. Some companies are doubling and tripling down because they're preparing for what the next halving on the Bitcoin side is going to be. And as you know, the pattern has shown so far, if Bitcoin's halving happens, usually, what do they say? High tides lift all ships or something like that. So
yeah,
the pattern has been so far within the space. Bitcoin halving happens, Bitcoin goes up, everybody else is going to make out too. But here we are now where we're more evolved in regards to NFTs. We're more evolved in regards to smart contracts. We're more evolved in regards to crossing metaverses with more tokenomics. And then we now have the introduction of AI tokens and AI related whatever things. So even though you have it that Silvergate decided that they're going to sell off their crypto side banking elements, Signature Bank is going under, FTX situation just happened. Celsius is doing the crap shit that they're doing to the people. And then the other thing, Mount Gox. Mount Gox's situation is about to happen like right before, by a couple of months before the halving. The point of this all is that there's a lot of seemingly timely things being arranged out. And if you are either not paying attention to the, I don't want to say the particular part of the space, or at least paying attention to people who like try to give you context to how the patterns are in this space, as well as like the traditional world of business and business cycles, X amount of these things are lining up right now. At least in the conversations that I'm hearing, people explain things. And so this thing with Coinbase and them having to go through this whole like big ramp up of like, oh, look, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. And then they all of a sudden just do a 180. It's like, well, what the hell? Like, why would y'all do that? Or like, what's going on that's not public information? Like, that's the other part of the question. What's going on that's not public information? I can really only like wildly hypothesize what's not being said in public. And arguably, again, it's them preparing for, all right, we wanted to go this way, but we can't because also the regulatory stuff. What does it happen? Biden just put something out too that I cannot remember the details of how to explain it right now. But basically, they're about to really come for the retail people money-wise. Why? Because again, folks realize, and when I say folks, I'm saying folks as like regulators, the bigger business people, they realize that when this next halving comes, folks are going to make money. And at the end of the day, the government wants its cut. And so that's just kind of what it is, right? And this is the space, or this is the reality of how we're living in this in the world, like how the governance and everything works in the real world part of it. Governments look to figure out ways to get taxes out of people. The crypto space arguably has no exemption for the government not trying to figure out how to get money out of it. The Coinbase thing, let me get back to this whole Coinbase market thing. The other thing to note is imagine how many people signed up for it, and now it's just like, well, what now? Like, what do I do? Nothing. Like, it's a centralized player. They collect your information. They're going to figure out something else down the road. So probably in Q1, like closer to the happening, they might try to do something else. And for anybody, oh, that's what it is. No. All right, let me step back one. Recently, Coinbase came out with that whole build on base movement, like that marketing thing, and they're saying that L2 is going to be their like base is going to be like their L2, and it's going to be like DeFi-ish, decentralized, whatever. It's a lot of smoke and mirrors on that, because if you listen to some of his interviews, he's definitely saying it will be KYC compliant and stuff like that. So this particular combination of two things make me wonder, did they have to pivot the direction? Because as you pointed out before, in regards to the NFT market, it was too many uncontrollable variables, and let's say the scammers and the more technically savvy people were reacting much faster than they probably thought they could have dealt with. So for them, it was like, all right, we can't totally lock down this market the ideal way we want to, even though you have to KYC to be on the platform and all of that stuff. But we can't have too much of the user base getting scammed, plus having to worry about the regulatory side and how they're coming down. And then we want to push this other thing over here called, base. And we're telling people it's going to be decentralized, but we can't get too caught out in being distracted from trying to push this new L2 thing. I think they probably had too much going on, and they had to step back and like make a choice of which thing do we actually focus and push on. I think they went with pushing on base. And so they had to pull back from the NFT side, in part because the people who are taking advantage, whether it be through scamming or hacking, they might have been moving a little bit faster than, and the regulatory space wasn't in their favor. That's kind of how I'm looking at it. It sounds kind of convoluted, but at the end of the day, Coinbase is still trying to figure out how to prepare for the next happening. And they probably think Base is their better option for right now than actually following through on the NFT marketplace. Because the other thing of it is too, now you have the introduction of transactionless or not doing royalties or doing some kind of model that you don't have transaction fees. They're not necessarily in the best position to try to compete with Blur and then going through the whole thing with OpenSea. Like it's too many things on the plate, too many things happening. That's at least kind of my thought process on it. I'm sorry for the roundabout ramble part of it. This isn't me telling anybody to do anything particular with their NFTs unless they've done their own due diligence and research to understand, like, if you stay on Coinbase, what does it mean to whatever thing you bought in on versus if you leave it? I don't know, because I don't know what your pockets look like. I just know I don't mess with Coinbase. That's just me.
Yeah, I don't either. I do see that, like, you're right, a lot of the regulatory side and stuff aspects did play in. They did try to launch this right when that whole like royalty versus non-royalty, and I think they were one of the ones pushing non-royalty. They were wanting no royalty, no transaction fee, no nothing, right? They didn't want to be held liable for scam NFTs, I think. In the end, like, the service they were trying to produce with it isn't viable right now, obviously, right? But if they're still going to produce the other one, then they could really, basically, Base could be their baseline for a lot of future products coming out. So at the same time, we do see that they developed something quickly. I know they were attacked multiple times through scam hacks, which are not really hacking, but it's when scammers produce viable copies that look almost identical. Like the first or second day the beta launched, I actually had someone hit me in DM asking me if I could verify the link they were given was the correct link, because they personally, they were someone who was actually chosen through Coinbase to participate in beta, did not know if the site they were looking at was legit. And it ended up being not legit. Like, the link they got ended up being a fake, and it came from the actual email. So the scammers were doing things to use email headers that looked exactly like Coinbase, and their websites were damn near close. Like, the only way I was able to figure out what was going on was I had to use social media. As it is, I had to go through their I think it was their LinkedIn at the time. I had to go through their LinkedIn, and they had a beta access portal link, basically. Like, if you were accessing a beta, click here type thing. There was, like, I think 3 hops to get to it, but that's how you had to get to it. Like, something you wouldn't think about doing. Normally people would go to their Facebook or their website, and on the website, I couldn't find nothing. So there was a lot of hard shops as they came out, rolling out. And I'm going to see, I honestly think this is a good predecessor of what we're about to see with metaverses. And you're right, the halving's coming up. The price of Bitcoin doesn't go up at halving. It always goes up was it like 15 to 18 or 15 to 28 months after? Like, so we're expecting this somewhere between a year to a year and a half after the halving for the price of Bitcoin to start doing its major boom. So we might start seeing something like 8 months in where people just start having all these extra features. They're not fully functional, but it's enough function that people jump in. Kind of like we're seeing right now with video games and a lot of other things right now. That's kind of how everything's going. Everything right now is get it to where it barely works, get people on it. If people jump on it, continue. If people don't, drop it. And it's going to be exactly the same for metaverses. So I don't want to encourage people to like not jump on metaverses they want to jump on, but I do want to encourage people that don't look at every shining light or every blue chip, whatever, coming out until about 28 months after the halving. Not all of them are going to make it, and that's absolutely fine. So consider what you're doing and do it for a reason. Don't just jump into stuff for no reason anymore. Pay attention, because we're past the time frame where we can like goof off heavily with a lot of this tech. And I think the only reason why like regulation is coming in and stuff, like you said, they saw the last time they tried to step in at the wrong moment. Like they tried to step in after everybody got the money, and everybody was able to fight them basically. All the major parties they could have gone after to get money was able to fight them. And look at library case, right? That actually went well in the case of library and manufacturers. Sure, I don't think library technically lost, but it caused so many different, avalanches of, reactions for other good things to happen to come from it. And because of stuff like that, like these people, the governments know when to hit now. You're right. They actually now know when to hit. They tried last time. They fucked up. Now they're learning from their mistake. The next time they're going to hit, they're going to hit hard. And I think if they hit hard enough where people are actually like going to jail, seeing jail time, blah, 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 even if it's like people now, just later happening, I do think that projects and stuff will just kind of explode out of nowhere, where it's going to be stuff where people had been working on and they just went ahead and published it so they can make some money now. In case that happens, they have money to get out of jail. It's one of those like prepare for the worst, but keep going and hopes for the best, right? But that's the thing is I think NFTs and metaverses, they're so close together that when we see stuff happening with NFTs, we're going to see it happening with metaverses. And I do like how you're talking about in here, AI in a game. AI in a game. That's Warcraft, this one, right? But this is not just AI in a game. No, this is actually AI-controlled character, right?
Yeah, I was trying to look at the video, but I don't know if whoever uploaded the video took the video down off of the streamable platform, so I couldn't actually see what the whole thing is. But nonetheless, it's still an interesting concept, and kind of in. So again, scrolling through Twitter, trying to figure out some things of conversation today, and it was like, oh, see this, and I was like, yo, this is like actually similar to what we were talking about with doing in Mind Test. But they did it in World of Warcraft, and the basic idea for the folks who are not seeing this is you are able to have a AI partner, and it can do certain functions on its and it can basically fight with you in tandem against opponents, and it can do some of its own independent activities. So I would really like to figure out how, or granted, World of Warcraft is way more complex on the back end than Mind Test, but I am definitely curious as to like, did they build from the ground up, or did they already like take something that was library or API key kind of thing, and then just added. Sorry, I'm saying this word wrong. Added it in, and I'm also curious on like what is the UI that allows is the interface between like the player outside in the real world, and then is it something that like their avatar interacts with to make it active. I really wish this video would have worked. I really wish this video would have worked.
From what little bit I got, I don't think I even got the video to work, but from what little bit I got, I saw your thing, and there was an article, and from what I got, it was like built like I want to say like a mod or something, but it's the character itself though. So the entire thing, the way it's set up, it's got to be script side. Rather, it's its API to the server that's talking with the AI or whatever. But the actual like, because basically World of Warcraft, just like Mind Test, they're openable. So people have opened them up, and they actually know what data points equal what information, and they can actually adjust, modify 100%. Just like they're same thing with like Elden Ring. I've been on a big Elden Ring kick. I've been developing this thing for like disabled and people who just play with like just a mouse, like solo hand players. And I've been using Elden Ring as like the launch pad or whatever. But I found out from getting the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing now is I found out like Elden Ring has a huge modding community where like they basically had the entire game opened up 100% to where like they can go in, they can change anything, they can do anything they want. That you want all the characters you have a certain type of character, whatever. Sure, you want the AI a character uses to change. Sure, and those people people, the modders that are like breaking these up and doing all this, they got these specs of information that I wish I had. I wish I had the information they had about opening up this game data type stuff, because it's just something I've never gotten the real hang of. I've done a bunch of different things. I've gotten stuff to work. I used to do cracking, where you get the games to work out CDs and things like that. But we're talking about big things where, like, for example, on Elden Ring, you can change it to all the characters in Elden Ring is one of any boss, any character, doesn't matter, any game, any game character, item, asset, doesn't matter. But then you can also be like, oh well, I want their AIs though to be equivalent to what they should have been. So if the goat gets turned into a dragon, it will still have the AI of a goat though. Normally you could have it go, well, I want it to be a dragon, but I want to have the AI of a dragon. So I mean, like, so I'm sure they're doing something like that where they're going in and whatever scripts are being used to determine the AI of that bot or that NPC or whatever, whether it's the information they're going to say, directions they do, things like that. Because I do know, like, Diablo 2, remember that game? It had a generic AI. It's not AI like what we have nowadays. Back then, it was really just pre-programmed intelligent bot that would follow you around and help you out, right? And the way it worked was basic. It was just like it stayed under certain parameters and it did certain things. But nowadays, we're talking like these things are, this is like an unlimited type AI where it has internet access. So it literally can do so much more than ever before. And I'm just, I hate to be honest, I'm doing a dead honest assumption here that, yeah, they're just basically saying, hey, instead of using these functions for this character, pull this information. And then they just have scripts that basically sanitize the data, that sets it up, says, okay, we know whatever comes in what order, they set it up, they separate it, and then it just becomes game data assets, just like everything else. And maybe they might have to, like, I would assume that there's actually a computer that they're connecting to a server that actually handles all the APIs and everything else. And so that basically server would be your bot. That would basically what that would be. And that would be what would be controlling the characters on the user end, would actually be that server. That would be, I think, the best way to do it for speed of service to many people at once. Because they said that this is open, right? Like this is something where more than one person can interact with at a time, or more than one person can be using at a time, right?
I want to say, yeah. So, all right, I'm gonna throw this out there. Like, if anybody's a World of Warcraft person and you see this later on, do leave a comment, whether you're watching this or listening to this on the Twitter Spaces side, or if you're seeing this later on in the Gentleman of Crypto YouTube channel, because I would like to revisit this again to figure out, like, is this just in the beta phase of what they're doing, and follow it along to see, like, how does this progress out. And you made the point too in that the process is like trying to figure out, is it that they're doing the single server and that's running all the APIs and stuff like that? Because again, I say to folks all the time on here, it's not just that we're geeking out to geek out. Like, it's us geeking out about this tech stuff on the back end, because we're also trying to figure out things that we are working on, or like ideas that we want to explore. Case in point, when I seen this, I was like, yo, this is very similar to what me and 3D was talking about, as far as doing a chat GTP kind of function in a mind test ecosystem. And it is definitely a process to try to figure out, one, how do you even first get the feature in the ecosystem, then figuring out what your UI is. Then there's the other part of, like, well, what is the data set or the library that you're going to use in relation to? Is it just a plot, or is it the world at large? Or do you just give it an open, like, tunnel way of having access to the regular internet? And granted, that might be like some really stupid way to build it, as far as like the overload of trying to just give it open access to the internet. But these are the things you figure out when you actually start, like, really messing with the tech one way or the other. Like, and you understand so much more. If you listen to us talk and you hear the things we get excited about, we don't get excited about price on stuff. We be getting excited about the techie stuff. Whereas it's like, yo, this means, like, this could mean so many different things either, or we might get mad annoyed too. That's the other part of it. Like, case in point, the shit that Dungeons and Dragons was doing with the OGL license thing, that was a very annoying situation for us. And I honestly still do believe the metaverse space, or like players within the metaversal space, have not really took into account the gravity of what that upgrade to the OGL licensing setup that what's the name of Dungeons and Dragons parent company? Because
Hasbro.
I think, say it again.
Hasbro.
No,
Wizards of the Coast, and then Hasbro owns Wizards of the Coast.
Like the parent company to the company that owns thing, but I'm talking about that
Wizards of the Coast.
Wizards of the Coast. There we go. So, like, I think that that's going to come back around again, and I think when the space is more matured as far as the business side, and to a degree the tech, but I think it's going to be more about the business side within, like, like metaverse gaming, NFT relation, like, and NFTs in relation to gaming in the metaverses. But that's a whole nother ramble thing that I went on like that we did like weeks ago. The point being is, to me, this particular thing is exciting because it is similar to an idea that me and 3D are working on now in the mind test setup. And at some point, once we can get this proof of concept thing to go, we would definitely like to be putting it out to the community and seeing what folks find valuable, what folks come up with as far as the value of the tech. The great thing that, how do I say this? It's the great thing, or this is a plus, I guess to say, which I didn't know when we first initially started talking about this. It wasn't until like after I started playing around with it, is we can get into the mobile side of this because you can play mind tests on your smartphone. It's not just going to be a desktop thing. So hopefully down the road, this is going to be like, I don't know, like, I don't know exactly where this would end up going, but I do feel, that once we realize that there was a mobile avenue available to us, as opposed to it just being a desktop thing or a laptop thing, we don't know how exactly it's going to like open things up for us, but it's like, hey, we at least have this option now, and we'll just have to figure out how do we take advantage of it to get, you know, the I don't know, say the game or like this particular metaverse out to people with this function or this feature, and we'll see, you know, what people come up with, or like how do they like it or not like it, and we'll go from there. Sorry I segued on that one, y'all, but go ahead, bro.
Bro, so I just want to pull into the GP, the OP, Open Gaming License, OPL, OGL, my bad. You know, when that happened, like, when that first happened, that scared it out of me, because I was already doing something because of something Twitch already did. And so it was like, okay, this sucks. I'm about to get screwed hard, right? And then I didn't get screwed on the project anyways for a different reason. But because of that open thing that they were doing, they were trying to put in that 2.0 version, whatever, and the backlash, it caused a lot of people, and even me, like, I had changed what I was in there, we changed that up, and I gave us more ideas. I mean, like, it's weird. It's like, if the same thing happened, okay, if they would have said 10 years ago, hey, we want to change this, it would have just came out, it would never been leaked because people would have been too scared to leak, and it would have just happened, and nothing would have changed. People would bitch, especially privately and stuff on YouTube maybe, but it would have never been much of anything. It'd be like it normally is, where you hear people, but unless you're actually in that area, it's absolutely just quiet. No one else hears about it. But because, you know, this one, it was hugely different. I think that times have changed quite a bit, and with these times are changing, I wonder, like, how, you know, like, I think it's a perspective thing, where previously, when they tried to do metaverses 20 years ago, like, people got made fun of for being involved in them, and they didn't call it the same world now, right? And then now here it is 20 years later, some of those same things still exist and still run, and they get treated completely differently now. Like, the perspective of individual peoples as well as the societies involved in this stuff has changed so much that I'm wondering how long it's going to be until, like, a metaverse tries to change policies. You know, go from like we've already seen some of these open source, well, closed source. What happens when the next time something like that happens on a big one that has enough big players where they go, no, bro, we don't want that, and the backlash is heavy, that causes some major shift and change in, you know, evolution of the metaverse space. Because, like, you know what I mean? Like, all of these things, they seem very, like, nothing connected, but then when you look down to it, it's like, okay, if A didn't happen, B didn't happen, C didn't happen, D isn't there. Like, for example, if video games didn't get publicity on the news, people wouldn't have built video games for people to connect with each other on video games. As odd as it is, that was the only reason why people started connecting with video games. It was like a private way to talk about things without it getting leaked. And then what slowly came from that? People wanted social video games. More younger kids were on it that wanted to talk with their friends while they were playing. And a feature that was simply only for developers became an open-ended feature where infrastructure was built behind it. And it's just a matter of a real short time for that same thing to happen with metaverses. I think AI gonna be that thing. Like, you know, right now it's like, okay, you have an apartment in a video game, bro. All right, who are you gonna call to help you out? Like, Minecraft. You know, like, no offense to anybody, I love everybody who has to hit me up about this, and there is multiples. There's about 8 different people that at any point in time might hit me up and ask me a question, or ask for help, or for me to just jump into Minecraft and basically be their tour guide. I've actually, not that long ago, like, I think last week, I actually had to jump in on Minecraft with somebody, and we did like a 4-hour session where they wanted to play, they have not a clue how to play, and I just go in with them and we walk around and I show them places to look at and I make sure they have a fun time. And so it's like, you know, like, think about that kind of process. Like, there are people and services for weird shit, you know, AI is going to be able to replace a lot of that and make it more automated. Where, my friend, we had to set up a time, and I think we actually, we had a plan two weeks beforehand to find a date. Then we got a date and we played for 4 hours. Well, imagine if you just went into the game and said, I need a play date, bro. And then boom. Or you're just having a bad day, bro. And you go and you click on the console and you say, bro, I need some company. And at least a character in the game can play the game with you. Even if it's not a social interaction that's like major. It could just be the lines from the game. But at the same point, an AI could do that for you. An AI could know how you play because it watches you play all day and has your game character specs saved in the data sheet already to ensure that your game character is saved. So it can do stuff like if it sees you playing erratic, it could actually guess that you may be in a bad or sad mood and could actually just plug someone in for you and start playing with you and say, hey, someone wanted to join your game. More offline games or one-player games are socially connectable. And we are starting to see, like with Elden Ring being one of these major ones and Cyberpunk being another major one where, like what was first single player is now being blended into a way where it's both single and multiplayer at the same time. So where at any point in time, your single player experience becomes multiplayer. So AI could plug into that. And if you never know when it's actually a friend plugging in, they could just pretend to be your friend, plug in, give you a fun time, and you not think twice about it. And when you talk to your friend, either they're going to be like, nah, bro, that wasn't me. Or they might even not know what you're talking about, but still be like, yeah, we play. Okay, I know what you're talking about. You know what I mean? Like, it all depends on that situation. But at the same time, it could become to a point where AI could plug itself in so fluidly that we don't notice it. I think that's kind of maybe the localized endpoint of AI for this type of technology, games and metaverses. I think that's what the endpoint is. If we can make AI seem invisible, but always be present, and bro, metaverses will be your school. That will be your history lesson. That will be how you do museums. All these big ass museums and stuff in it slowly go away, and they'll just get into larger, bigger museums. You'll have like more centralized museums, but you'll have more decentralized digital museums. And then, like you'll have all these different things, and it will help out in a handful of ways. A, cost-effective people who are poor. So lower end people have more options that weren't available to them before. Like being able to put on a Google Cardboard with your phone and walk around Mona Lisa. Like, you can do that right now. You couldn't do that 8 years ago. You do something similar, but not like it is now, where you could actually trick somebody and did not know that they actually have a headset on if they got drunk the night before. So it's getting creepy, but at the same time, like for this type of stuff, seamless AI, I think that's what it's good for. Now, I want to know, okay, because you kind of mentioned it. You said, what could it do? What do you really think that AI would be best suited for this type of industry, metaverses, games, and the combination of the two?
Honestly, I don't have 100% in knowing. Because part of the thing that I look at is like we talk about gaming, right? As like the low hanging fruit to integrating AI, but at the same time, the things that AI would be able to track as data, arguably you can find in other areas of where people, do some kind of work or do some kind of interaction. Like people don't just talk or interact in video games or like in that online environment. They also interact in things like Twitter and things like Facebook and things like Snapchat and you know what I'm saying? So like we say gaming, which is fucking ironic now that I think about this. We talk about it and promote the gaming environment as a low hanging fruit, but arguably aren't more people just on social media as opposed to playing video games?
Nope.
Really?
Yeah, like there are more signups for social media than congruent daily video game players. But there are way more daily congruent video game players just on online video games, or like being able to prove people playing video games from like Twitch and stuff like that, than congruent daily active users on social media. As odd as it is, I think it was like 3 years ago, video games broke emails, daily emails, like video game players.
I'm actually surprised by that. So you said something that I wanted to tap on before I had jumped into that whole point, and I do want to segue on this last joint that I sent to you about the what was it, the Nifty Island thing. I do want to still get on that before we get out of here.
Yeah, bro, jump in on it.
Sorry. So, yeah, as far as like the best application, I honestly don't know, because I think really the best application of AI is data collection. Is that the word I'm looking for? Or data, or data, I would say reorganization.
I think what you're thinking of is like AI uses the data we are storing in the best way.
Yeah, so like that. So I don't, because considering that it's all just data, I don't know if to say, quote, the gaming sector is the best application of. I think considering that it's all just a collection of data and it's a lot of extrapolations being made. I don't know. I don't know what the quote best thing of that would be, but we're definitely going to see a number of things come out in this decade. That's for certain. But segueing, well, house cleaning, and then I'm going to segue into this last thing because of time and stuff. Again, for the folks who are interested in some of the stuff we talked about, please do leave a comment, please do share, please do like, please do thumbs up, all of that fun stuff, you know, because you got to say this call to action stuff. As well as just like, if you heard us say something that you totally don't agree with, hey, comments are open. It's okay. You can totally disagree with us. We would appreciate nonetheless. And if you do agree with us, let us know that too. We appreciate that. But if you don't agree, I'd rather hear that part so that we can then like go back in and be like, all right, well, did what we say not make sense? Or like, why is what this person's saying something that I should consider? I would really rather that, honestly, because then that opens up the whole, you know, debate and our ability to understand and learn more and all of that funness. But other thing to note is we do these every Thursday, 8 p.m. here on the Builder DAO Twitter Spaces. And then we also have the replay the replay that goes out on the Gentleman of Crypto YouTube channel, which is on Fridays at 11 p.m. And that has more of a visual aspect going on to it compared to, you know, how Twitter itself does, because it's basically a podcast, right? So yeah, check us out. Again, tell a friend to tell a friend, like, comment, agree with us, disagree with us. We appreciate. If you are a person who is into World of Warcraft, if you're using this new feature that they're doing with the AI stuff, please do make a comment. Or like let us know where we can find some more stuff about that, because I am curious on that one. And what was the first one? Oh, the NFT Coinbase thing. It's gonna be what it's gonna be. Like, I figured they're gonna come up with something later on. But as for this last thing, which is the Nifty Island, and the basic idea was that like whatever your NFT is, your NFT, your avatar, you could it's basically like I don't want to say Mortal Kombat. Visually, I'm not gonna lie, the clip looks dope for like what's going on in the animation, for like how the fight sequences are visualized. Which I do wonder that. Like I've been wondering that for a while now. Like when we get to a point that the games can handle the loads of like, you know, Tekken, Mortal Kombat level fighting techniques, but it's like NFT based characters as far as the digital provenance of them and stuff like that, and how the game works on the back end. When we get into being able to cross different worlds, like who was it? Was it Capcom that did it where like they took all of their characters and were like, you could just play the you know, the teams or like the Royal Rumbles for all the Capcom characters. Like, I think that's going to be an interesting phase to see how it plays out in the NFT, I don't know what to say, market, but in the metaversal spaces, I'm curious on how the copywritten stuff is going to work. And then when you get into the whole thing of like people making unique avatar characters and then wanting to cross over into other ecosystems, worlds that might be of a different brand, might be from a totally different company. It's like, so what's the other joint that's different than the other gaming joint than Hasbro?
Pathfinder?
Nah, Pathfinder is like a derivative. Like Pathfinder isn't on the same echelon as Hasbro.
Oh no, that would be Dungeons and Dragons. Like the one for like board games and stuff.
Well, really,
Mattel or something like that.
Okay, there we go. Like Mattel. So that's my point. So like saying, Mattel has all of their, you know, IP and their characters and stuff, and then someone does something where they make an avatar that's like an amalgamation of a Mattel character and a Hasbro character. Where does the IP, like, I be wondering stuff like that now, bro. Like, where do you go in regards to if they hit you with a, well, that character's our character? No, it's not, because it's only like maybe 30% of the avatar visually that you can recognize the phenotype, and then like the other, let's say 20% is something from Hasbro, and then you made up the other remaining.
Please tell me you know about Sonic Chew.
Sonic Chew?
Yeah.
Wait, chew like I'm chewing gum, or two like TWO?
Chew like the end of Pikachu. Sonic plus Pikachu, Sonic Chew.
I do not.
Well, so there's this guy who used to be super famous on the internet for basically people hitting him, like trolls getting him, all right? And he had to do an art project, and he was told he could not do licensed characters. He only drew like Pokemon or Sonic characters. And so he was told he had to do something that was not licensed because it was going to be released into a book or something, right? I remember something. So he created a combination of Sonic and Pikachu. He called Sonic Chew. And he has his teacher with this work. Now, keep in mind, this guy is autistic with some mental retardation. And I say that I do mean like as in the actual termination of what retardation means that there is some physical brain or mental problem, something physically wrong, as well as tends to be a little bit more foolish than other people, probably because of that. So when you hear people say retard, that's actually what it means. It means there's a physical malformation that you can normally see either in the brain or in the like body, the face, and stuff like that, bone structure or something. And because of whatever has changed, they tend to be foolish. So in that, he does foolish things, as in like put two characters together, like you're saying, amalgamation of 50-50 though, Sonic and Pikachu. And he got it. Eventually, this guy gets, like, just to cut a long story short, there's an 8-hour documentary if you want to watch it on YouTube. There's like 5 different versions, and they're all really good. But I recommend Game of Thrones. But anyways, he gets it copywritten, legalized, and like legally his. It's 50% Sonic, 50% Pikachu. And he has gone so far as able to have gotten the official Sonic the Hedgehog and Sega Genesis accounts on Twitter to comment back to him and his fake accounts, including when one of his fake accounts asked Sega if Sonic 2 would be in one of the games that was released in like one of the Sonic games that was released in like 2014 or something like that. They said only if they could like do something that the guy who created it had specifically mentioned in his personalized handmade comics, that was like a sin basically. And it had something to do with so basically, like, remember, this is the time frame where Sonic's arms went from all blue to where they had, like, he has gloves on or something, and they're no longer all blue, or they went from not all blue to all blue. I don't remember. But that freaked him out. He made a big public statement about it where that's how Sonic, the company, or Sega, the company, and the people who made the Sonic games knew about him. And so when his fake character asked if Sonic 2 going to be in the new game or whatever, they were like, yeah, sure, we'll put him in the game, but this has to be, we'll only do it if we can change this part about his arms. Just to put into it. I mean, he ended up saying no, whatever, but think about it. Like, he got so close to a character he created that is legally his by all standards of the law, almost made it in a game because he just trolled a company that he knew didn't really like him.
Interesting.
So having an amalgamation of those things might legally be possible.
Like I said, a couple of weeks ago, there was a whole thing with the Copyright Patent Office, and I was listening to lawyers being lawyers, and granted, they were more talking about like content creation in regards to musicians and artists and stuff like that. But like, I really don't think they understood. Not all of them. There were a number of lawyers who were just like talking to their industry and being protectionists of their industry as lawyers. And there were just some lawyers who just like the tech was just over their head, like flat out over their head, because they said like they would say stuff like, "Well, what happens if the platform goes down?" And then how do you still maintain or enforce the royalties or the copyright, protections of blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, and a couple other lawyers were really smart and quick on there. And I was telling you about it. And they understood, like, if you're saying that the front end goes down, like, and then that just stops your whole project and your business, or like your ability to collect on your NFT related content, then you weren't on a blockchain to begin with. Like, that's it. There's nothing else to say. But in relation to this, like, I'm curious, like, that would be an interesting thing to see how that like pans out. Because here's another thing to note in regards to taking like real world IP and then the whole thing of how much of it do you amalgamate to make it quote your own or unique or whatever. Because the dude who was doing the Berkey bags, the Berkey NFT joints, he had to pay like $100,000 back to the company. He also had to give the company the digital domains, like the Ethereum based domains, and something else. The lawyers like really went at him to be able to like take their like everything that they quote claim to be their IP. And then I thought about it and I was like, yo, like I could see the whole paying them back part, but like if you give up the domains like and they don't actually pay for any of it, like damn, you got screwed. And then the other part to note is just to this point right here about the being able to make an amalgamation of a real world IP product, but make your own, derivative of it. I think in the long run, Berkey's shot themselves in the foot because they were still running on their traditional model of like, this is ours, this is ours, this is ours, versus going to the dude, yo, let's make a partnership of some sort, and then we'll take this side from you, but you got to go do something else different or some variation of. Like, I think they could have went that way, but traditional companies being traditional companies and running off of traditional models, it is what it is. But yeah, like I'm curious how we're going to see this stuff start playing out furthermore in this decade of where, folks are going to be able to create their own avatars. And then there was another story that I had seen, another tweet or post I had seen where somebody was talking about how they were able to do full body scans and it took them like 10 minutes and they were able to upload it into like any kind of virtual environment and make it like a gameplay into it if that's what you wanted. Like, so what do you do when people start doing that? Like the idea of being able to scan your own image in. And you know how you have in some contracts, especially like in sports and entertainment, they'll have that whole thing about like your likeness and image, and they have like the right and ability to use it in perpetuity. Like, how does that work if somebody started doing that on their own? Like let's say, for example, you did some shit like that when you were like in high school, then you did it again in college, then you do it again like maybe when you turn 30. And you have these different stages of avatar of your stuff, and you're somebody related to like entertainment or whatever. If you did that, how is that right going to work out down the road? Like, again, I don't think the industry understands like the way that the tech is progressing, and then the ability of how it is in the hands of the I want to say the end creator, and what that means for the industry being so used to the more top down model. But what I also understand now is like, yeah, it's cool to be able to quote have the technology and the access and the power quote and the data, like own the data in your own hands. But if there's no market for it, it arguably means buckus that you quote have the ability to create the stuff, the ability to own the data. Because if there's no market that makes the adoption and the proliferation grow, and other people are like, oh, we could do something with this, we see that basically, even though the stuff could be innovative technology, it just it dies off for the use case, or like people don't get the utility of it, or you might be ahead of the curve, some shit like that. Like I feel like we've been learning that lesson in various ways. Me and you in particular, I'm talking for the things that we've been working on, and looking at like the bigger part of the space when it comes to trying to understand like how do you make this digital thing a commercially viable product, or how do you get people's attention to like this thing that you're doing with the technology that is innovative, but it's like, well, no one sees the utility or the value of it, even though it's doing something like arguably pretty cool.
Yo, bro, you're not wrong. Like, being able to see utility in something, normally it works in one of two ways. You don't notice it till it's not there, and you wish it was, or you never really understand it, even if it's there, because you've never had to have it without it. It's like if you told someone, hey, you know the reason why your house is hot and cold because there's these units that keep it hot and cold. Some of them are gonna look at you like crazy, like fuck yeah, right, bro. That's not how that works. House is just always like that. It's always the same. You know, they're not. But so just the way things are in that case. But at the same time, though, while you're talking, you made me think of a couple of things. I'll go back to the lawyers being lawyers. Remember, not too long ago, AI that generated in stuff for art can't be copywritten. Also, in that means that the person who clicks make might not be liable for what gets made. And in that case, like say for example, let's say AI generates art that is either an amalgamation of characters or damn near an exact copy of a copywritten character, and it is minted directly into an NFT onto a blockchain. So it's never seen by any human. As soon as it's made, it's minted, and then it's purchased. And then after someone purchased it, they have to view it on the blockchain, right? So it's a revealed after purchase NFT. So that NFT though comes with the full VRM, like you're saying, where it's just a fully boned creature character that's basic, where it's got arms, it's got legs, it can move around. You can put it in anything, you can use it, right? 3D model. But because it's an NFT and it's all generated by AI and it's on blockchain, if you created it or if you own it and use it, you shouldn't technically be liable for it, right? You see what I'm saying? Like, because of the way things were set up, like that might actually be a technical loophole in the future where there are people going to start building and doing stuff with AI where it's like, it is an exact copy of Coca-Cola. It says Coca-Cola looks just like Coca-Cola, blah, blah, but on the very corner it has this little QR thing or whatever that basically means this was generated by AI. And because of that, you're not liable for damages of you using stuff like that looks exactly like Coca-Cola and say, oh, movie or commercial or something. And then you're talking about the body scanner thing. Like, you're talking about the guy where they scan you with an app or whatever, and the AI instantly takes that scan and uses it into a VRM 3D model so you can use it immediately, right? So you could actually like go somewhere. So you go to the, I don't know, bro, you like a ball or something, like you go watch a game of sports or something, right? Or some kind of event, maybe music. Maybe we go to a conference, right? We show up to a conference. But to get in, bro, safety first. When you do a body scan, make sure you're not carrying a weapon or anything. We need to make sure I'm not carrying anything, whatever the reason is. Safety is going to be the reason, right? They post out these little things and they're like, oh, it's a no-touch thing because of COVID, we can't touch you, and they just scan you. And then like 8 months to a year or so later, heck, later that day, you are watching a commercial with you in it. And the commercial is about something that you just don't agree with. Like say I'm sitting there watching a commercial and it's about Catholicism. Bro, I'm going to be like, and it's a character of me going, hey, I love being Catholic. Let's blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, bro, I ain't Catholic. I would never say that. But it's AI generated, AI coordinated, AI spoken for, AI everything. The data for the speech was pulled off the internet because I have videos online. The way I talk was pulled off of the amount of text that I produced through articles and such. And like the body scan was just from earlier today when I came into the event. And guess what? The company would not be liable for it. You know why? It's just done by AI.
The craziness, folks, the craziness of it all. And as I say, like, we're just two dudes geeking out on this tech stuff. that we are seeing in the metaversal spaces. And are we right? I'm not saying we right on stuff. Are we wrong? I don't think we're wrong outright per se. Some things might take a little bit longer than others, but nonetheless, if you disagree with us, the comments are always open. Whether here on the Twitter space or if you're talking about on the YouTube side of it, on the Gentleman of Crypto YouTube channel, we do appreciate any comments, and we would definitely look to, answer questions and stuff like that. I want to bring us down because we're already like an hour, we're past the hour. So nonetheless, this is just us, talking about some things going on in the space. Like I said, the Coinbase market thing and then AI stuff going on in the gaming. And I think like the last point I want to say, and it's funny, I've heard it mentioned a couple of times on some of the things I've been listening to, where people are like, oh yeah, like NFTs have to have utility now. And like the new wave coming in for the gaming space of like blockchain related games, like they're going to have to come up with more utility or incentives to get people to be interested again back in, the gaming aspects, but more about like the NFTs in games, which is funny because in my mind, all I'm really hearing is just saying like, oh, we need to find out more ways to make it speculative versus actual utility, right? And then the other thing to note, like some of the greatest works of art in this world have no utility other than just fucking sitting on a wall or sitting in the center of a floor somewhere. Yet we talk about this stuff with NFTs and metaverses and like being able to visually create stuff as though, well, we have to have this type of upgrade to it because, it's a metaverse thing. It's a digital thing. It's a techie thing. It's supposed to be able to do more than just exist. I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer to that, but I feel like it's the experiment that is being played out right now in the metaverse space, in the crypto space, within traditional gaming, as well as just like the general idea of content being created in the world right now. And so, I'm looking forward to this journey with the rest of y'all in the world. And I'm gonna close it out on that because now I'm feeling like I'm rambling and I know I'm tired right now, which is funny because I took a nap. But anyway, 3D, if you got any other things to say, hey, your overseer, I wasn't sure if you actually wanted to say anything. Sorry I didn't actually throw something out to you, but you still stuck around and we do appreciate. So hopefully we'll catch you next week.
I did send them those things a couple times, just so you know what's up. I don't really have a lot to add in. I just want to point out that at one time pictures did have utility. All those old photos that were hand drawn, all those sculptures that actually had a rhyme and reason at one time. Originally that was to inform people of information that they couldn't actually describe. They didn't speak languages or the same languages at the same time. And then eventually they became when utility was worthless. And at the same time, they then became speculative. And that's kind of my point that I really get at is anything that has a value or utility will eventually lose the utility to something else. And if it's something that people love, it will turn speculative because of it. And anything that people love in general is going to turn speculative anyways. So don't be speculative on us. Make us a utility. Come back and join us every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on Twitter, and catch us replay on YouTube. That's right, every Friday. Was at 9 or 11 p.m. at night on the Gentleman of Crypto show. Go ahead and like, subscribe, come back, see us, say hi. You know what they say? They might take your cash or card, but we'll take your heart for free. Everybody enjoy.